"Turn off the device now. Your daughter will leave the coma and walk again," he shouted. A thin Filipino boy of just 12 years, desperately erupted in the ICU of one of the most expensive hospitals in Los Angeles. His dirty street clothes contrast brutally with the aseptic atmosphere where millionaire Richard Blackwell kept his daughter Emma, connected to machines 3 months ago. The impact of these words was devastating. Richard, a 45-year-old real estate tycoon used to running millions of dollars, felt the air escape his lungs. He had been there for hours, holding Emma's cold hand, an 8-year-old girl who had entered a coma after a domestic accident that doctors classified as irreversible. "What did you say, boy?" asked Richard, his voice embargoed by surprise and accumulated despair. The Philippine boy, Miguel Santos, raised his dark eyes with a disturbing determination for his age. There was no fear in his expression, just a conviction that made the millionaire's heart accelerate. "I said exactly what you heard. Turn off these devices that your daughter will get up from this bed and walk. She doesn't need it. They are lying to the Lord." The boy's voice echoed by the ICU like thunder in a clean sky. The silence that followed was suffocating. Beside the bed, Victoria Blackwell, Emma's elegant stepmother, advanced with poorly disguised fury. "Who let this dirty child come here? Security! Take this filthy kid from here before they bring disease to our Emma." Dr. Harrison Wells, a private family doctor and alleged friend of Richard 15 years ago, approached with calculated expression. "Richard, this child clearly has no medical knowledge. Emma is alive only because these devices keep her vital functions. If we turn them off, she dies in minutes." But something in Miguel's gaze made Richard hesitate. The boy did not show the slightest intimidation in front of two powerful adults shouting at him. Instead, his eyes shone with a certainty that there is only enough pain to recognize the lie when he sees it. "Your name is Emma, isn't it?" Miguel asked, completely ignoring Victoria and the doctor. "She has a star-shaped birthmark on her left wrist. She loves to draw horses and has always dreamed of having a white pony named Snow." Richard's world stopped. This intimate information about his daughter had never been publicly shared. How could a Philippine street boy know such personal details about Emma? Miguel continued, her now lower but urgent voice. "She told me that you always read stories for her to sleep, especially about brave princesses. She also said she's afraid of the dark, but she feels safe when you sings that song about fantry stars." Victoria and Dr. Wells exchanged nervous looks. Richard felt his legs bamper. The song about fantry stars was something that only he and Emma knew, a melody she had invented when she was little, sung only in the most intimate moments between father and daughter. How do you know these things?" he whispered Richard, kneeling in front of Miguel. The boy held his hands with a surprising force for someone so young. "Because Emma is my friend, Mr. Blackwell, and she told me that the people who should take care of her are doing just the opposite." Miguel's eyes filled with tears, but his voice remained firm. "She's not sick. They are making her sick on purpose." Before Richard could completely process these words, Victoria exploded in calculated hysteria. "Richard, you can't believe this child. Call the security guards immediately. This boy clearly has mental problems." Dr. Wells quickly supported. "Richard, like his doctor and friend, I need to be rational. The devices are the only thing keeping Emma alive. We can't risk their life based on the fantasies of a traumatized child." But something had changed in Richard's eyes. 3 months of pain, clear nights, and an emptiness in the chest that seemed impossible to fill. And now, before him was a boy who knew secrets that only Emma could have told. While Victoria shouted by security guards and Dr. Wells talked about medical protocols, Richard watched Miguel with a new intensity. The boy did not go back, did not cry, did not plead. In his eyes there was something Richard had long lost, genuine hope, not based on empty medical promises, but something much more powerful. If you are feeling your heart accelerate with this story of mystery and possible betrayal, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Because what Miguel knew about Emma was just the tip of an iceberg that was about to reveal such a shocking conspiracy that he would destroy everything Richard thought he knew about the people he trusted most. And when the truth came to light, there would be no return. Underscore, 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 underscore. Block 2. Victoria's explosion echoed through the hospital corridors. "Security! Now!" His sharp voice cut the air like a siren. "Boy, you don't understand the severity of Emma's caught medical Richard's situation. attention. Your fantasies can Why cost was your her wife life. so desperate to remove a boy But who Miguel theoretically did not represent any millimeter? threat? Dr. Wells approached Miguel with calculated steps. The Philippine boy's voice, like a predator surrounding his prey, made Richard shiver. Emma told me that you always apply injections on it when your father is not looking. She said these injections make her feel weaker, sleepier. These are fantasies, doctor. The silence that followed was deafening. Dr. Wells blinked quickly, his professionalism mask starting to crack. Are prescribed medicines, medical protocols that a street boy would obviously not understand. Richard felt something cold through his spine. In the last 3 months, he had left Emma alone with Victoria and Dr. Wells countless times, fully trusting in both. Now, for the first time, a terrible question was beginning to form in his mind. Miguel continued, Emma also told me that you two talk secret when they think she's sleeping. They talk about accelerating the process and how the old man won't handle much more. Are these also fantasies? Victoria was livid. Her perfectly manicured hands trembled as she grabbed her husband's arm. Richard, you can't believe this child. She clearly has serious mental problems. Probably used drugs. But Richard was watching Miguel's eyes, and what I saw there was not madness or desperation of an addict. It was the same fierce determination that Emma always showed when she defended something she believed. The same intensity in the eyes, the same challenging posture. How did Emma leave home without me know? Richard asked slowly, his low, controlled voice. She was always so weak, so tired. How could an 8-year-old girl get out of the mansion and find you? Miguel smiled for the first time, a sad smile but full of affection. She didn't leave the house, Mr. Blackwell. I entered. The boy took a deep breath before continuing. Every afternoons when his wife said that Emma was sleeping, I climbed the back wall and played with her in the room. For 2 whole months, the revelation fell like a lightning. Richard remembered Victoria always insisting that he would not disturb Emma during the afternoons, claiming that she needed absolute rest. He remembered how his daughter seemed slightly more lively during the mornings before the Vespertinian medication seasons. Dr. Wells tried to resume control of the situation. Richard, this is absurd. A child would not be able to climb the security walls of his property without being detected by the alarm systems. The alarms were disabled 2 weeks ago, Miguel said calmly. Emma told me that Mrs. Victoria told her because they were scaring the sick girl, but Emma wasn't scared of the alarms. She was happy because she meant I could keep visiting her. Victoria staggered as if she had punched. Richard perfectly remembered the conversation. His wife had said that the alarms were disturbing Emma's sleep and that it would be better to disable them temporarily. At the time, it seemed a sensible and loving suggestion. Now it was beginning to look like something completely different. Where do you live, Miguel? Richard asked, his smoother voice now. At the San Jose shelter, to 3 blocks from here. Sister Maria can confirm. I always come back before dinner except in recent days when I found out that Emma had been hospitalized. I was looking for her until she was able to track which hospital. Richard knew the shelter. He had made generous donations several times. How did you get to this specific room? Emma drew me a hospital map the last time we saw each other. She said that if she ever had to find her here, it was to look for the 3C wing. He said it was where the special patients stayed. Miguel paused, his eyes filled with tears. She already knew they were going to bring her here. I already knew they were going to put her in a coma. Richard's breath was heavy. Had Emma anticipated her own hospitalization? How could an 8-year-old child have this level of conscience about his medical situation? Dr. Wells stepped forward, clearly panicked. Richard, this boy is obviously trained to tell these stories. Someone instructed him. This has all the characteristics of an attempted extortion or kidnapping. But M. Eastern, while speaking, Victoria was backwards toward the door. Her hands trembled visibly, and she kept looking at Miguel as if he were a ghost who had risen to torment her. Miguel walked to the bedside table where there were some drawings that Richard had brought, drawings that Emma made before she got sick. The boy pointed to a colorful drawing of a girl playing with a boy in a garden. This is me and Emma playing hide-and-seek behind the red rosera in her garden. She drew it last week, 2 days before she was sick. Miguel became the role, revealing a date on the back, written with Emma's unmistakable child calligraphy. Richard took the drawing with trembling hands. The date was there, clear as the day. A week after Emma was admitted to irreversible coma. It was at this moment that something inside Richard's chest broke, not of pain but of a growing and controlled fury he had not felt for years. Her daughter was not only aware when she should be in a coma, but she was making friends and playing while he cried every night believing she was dying. Victoria and Dr. Wells exchanged a look of pure panic. It was the look of 2 people who just realized that their carefully built lie was crumbling, stone by stone, in the calloused hands of a 12-year-old Philippine boy who had become the best friend of the alleged victim. At that moment, Richard Blackwell understood that the next words that came out of his mouth would define not only Emma's fate, but also that of 2 people in whom she had entrusted her whole life. And for the first time in months, He was not afraid. He felt something much more dangerous for those who had betrayed him. Underscore 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 block 3. Richard got up slowly, his eyes never letting Miguel's face. Every conversation, every visit, every detail that Emma shared with you. His voice was controlled, but there was a new intensity there that made Victoria back further. Richard, you can't be considering seriously, Dr. Wells started, but it was cut by a firm gesture from the millionaire's hand. I want to hear what he has to say. Continue, Miguel. The Filipino boy took a deep breath, organizing his thoughts. Emma told me that it all started 4 months ago. She was playing in the garden when she heard a conversation through the library window. Mrs. Victoria was talking on the phone about accelerating the schedule because you were starting to suspect that something was wrong. Victoria was livid. This is ridiculous. A child inventing fantasies to draw attention. But Miguel continued. Emma said you, Dr. Wells, explained to her that the injections were special vitamins for rich children, but she realized she always felt worse after them. One day she pretended to take the injection and spit the liquid into the vaseland when you weren't looking. Dr. Wells stepped back. Richard, these are fantasies of a confused child. The plant died in 2 days, Miguel added calmly. Emma showed me the vase. The leaves got yellow and withering exactly how she was getting. Richard felt the blood freeze in his veins. He remembered the vase of orchids that had mysteriously died in Emma's room, despite the care of the professional gardener. Miguel pulled something out of his pocket, a small glass bottle with a few milliliters of light liquid. Emma managed to keep some of the last injection. She gave me in the hope that someone could find out what it was. I hid in fear, but now, Dr. Wells advanced quickly trying to get the bottle, but Miguel was faster, putting him in Richard's hands. Send, Mr. Blackwell. Find out what they were putting on their daughter's body. This proves nothing, Victoria shouted, her acute voice of despair. It can be anything. This kid may have put any substance there. But Richard was watching his wife and best friend's reactions. Panic, poorly disguised, the exchanged eyes. The way they both tried to discredit Miguel's word with an urgency that went beyond normal medical concern. Miguel, Richard said slowly, Emma told you something else about their plans? The boy nodded severely. She said she heard you both talking about how to make it look natural and a $50 million inheritance that would be released when she turned 18. But if she died before, the money would go straight to Mrs. Victoria as the only legal heiress. The silence that followed was deafening. Richard had never mentioned this specific testament clause of his first wife to anyone, except for Dr. Wells during a private conversation years ago when he organizing legal documents after your marriage to Victoria. Victoria began to cry, tears that looked more about despair than sadness. Richard, you can't believe it. I love Emma like my own daughter. Why would I do something like that? For the same reasons you made my father sign the rolls of transferring the properties when he was unconscious in the hospital. A weak but clear voice echoed from the bed. Everyone turned around. Emma had her eyes open, her still weak voice, but her eyes shining with a lucidity that had not existed for months. Emma? Richard ran to his daughter's side, holding his cold hand. Hi, Dad, she whispered with a weak smile. Miguel came to save me, just as he promised. Victoria and Dr. Wells exchanged a look of absolute panic. The child who should be in an irreversible coma was not only conscious, but apparently lucid enough to make specific accusations about acts they thought to have completely hidden. Emma, my love, what did you mean about your grandfather? Richard asked softly, although his heart was fired. Emma turned her eyes tired to Victoria. She visited Grandpa Robert at the hospital 3 days before he died. I was hidden behind the curtain because I wanted to surprise him. I saw her put papers in front of him while he was with those tubes in his mouth and holding his hand so he would sign. Richard felt the world turn. His father had died 2 years ago, leaving his commercial properties, valued at more than $80 million, to Victoria, which at the time had seemed strange. But Victoria explained that the man had changed his mind about leaving everything to Richard after an emotional conversation they had. Victoria was crying and telling Grandpa that you and I were in financial danger, that you had lost a lot of money, and that only he could save us, Emma continued with still weak but determined voice. Grandpa tried to speak but couldn't because of the tubes. She held his hand and made him sign. Dr. Wells tried one last card. Richard, she is clearly confused by medicines. Kids in a coma sometimes have hallucinations when they awaken. I've never been in a coma, Emma said, her voice getting stronger. I pretended to be sleeping when you came to give me the injections because I was afraid. but I heard everything. All conversations about how to solve the problem, Emma, and how to share money later. Richard looked at Miguel, who was by the bed holding Emma's hand with the kindness of an older brother protecting her younger sister. Miguel, did you know that Emma was pretending? The boy nodded. She told me she pretended to protect herself. He said that if they knew she was aware and listening to conversations, they could do something worse. It was safer to let them think the plan was working. Richard felt a mixture of pride and horror. Her 8-year-old daughter had developed a survival strategy worthy of an adult, pretending to be dying to protect themselves from people who should be taking care of her. Victoria made a last desperate attempt. Richard, even if some of these accusations have a real background, you have to understand that I did everything for love, for our family. Your father was leaving everything to charities. I just wanted to make sure that Emma had a safe future. But Richard was no longer hearing Victoria's excuses. He was looking at Emma and Miguel, a brave enough girl to pretend to be dying to expose a conspiracy, and a Filipino street boy who had risked everything to save her friend's life. In his hands, he still held the bottle with the liquid that supposedly kept Emma stable. I no longer needed laboratory analysis to know the truth. The eyes of his daughter, clear and alert for the first time in months, were all proof that he needed. Dr. Wells tried to approach the door discreetly, but Richard observed the movement. Where do you think you are going, Harrison? It was then that Miguel smiled, the first genuine smile since he had entered the ICU, shouting over devices that needed to be turned off. Mr. Blackwell, there's one more thing Emma asked me to tell you when the right time came. Richard looked at the Filipino boy who had saved his daughter and destroyed a conspiracy of years with nothing but courage, loyalty, and a pure friendship that had grown secret between the walls of his own home. What else, Miguel? The boy took a small digital recorder from his pocket. Emma gave me this 3 days ago. He said that if something happened to her, I should give the Lord. He pressed the play button. Victoria's voice echoed from the small device. When the Makosa dies, we will have access to everything. Hospital will attest to natural death for coma complications, and in 6 months, we will be free to disappear with the money. Dr. Wells's voice replied, we just need to increase the dosage a little more. She can't stand another week. Richard closed his fists, not of uncontrolled anger, but of a cold and calculated determination. Emma had collected evidence. Miguel had risked life to deliver them. Now it was your turn to ensure that justice was done completely and definitively. Victoria and Dr. Wells realized that there was no way out. Their expressions have changed from despair to something much more dangerous. The perception that desperate people sometimes take extreme measures when cornered. Underscore, 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 block 4. Dr. Wells was the first to break. With the professional mask of professionalism completely destroyed, his eyes filled
You
with
have no
primitive
idea
anger.
what you just did, Richard. Absolutely no idea. Harrison, stop.
Victoria tried to control him, but it was too late. The doctor had completely lost control.
3 years planning this. 3 years hoping to access your pathetic fortune.
Dr. Wells shouted, pointing his finger at Richard.
Do you think you discovered everything, don't you? Do you think your hero boy saved the day?
Richard got up slowly, keeping Emma protected behind her.
Keep talking, Harrison.
Every word that comes out of your mouth is being recorded by the hospital security guards. It was then that Dr. Wells laughed, a bitter and desperate sound. Hospital security guards? Richard, you still don't understand. The medical director of the hospital is my brother-in-law. Half of the medical team has been in my scheme for years. Do you think Emma is the first rich child who mysteriously ill under my care? Richard's blood froze. Emma squeezed her father's hand, whispering, Dad, he's lying to scare us. But Miguel, who had remained calm throughout the confrontation, smiled for the second time. Mr. Blackwell, the doctor is right about one thing. Emma was not the first. Dr. Wells frowned, confused by the boy's reaction. Miguel continued. In fact, I met Emma because I was investigating other cases. My younger sister, Sophia, died 2 years ago in a medical accident under the care of Dr. Wells. She was only 6 years old. The silence that followed was deafening. Richard looked at Miguel with a new and terrible understanding. You didn't come here just to save Emma. I came to collect evidence, Miguel said calmly, taking a second device out of his pocket. This is not a common recorder, Mr. Blackwell. It is a transmitter. Everything that has been said in this room in the last 30 minutes has been transmitted in real time to 3 destinations. The FBI, the state's attorney and researcher Carla Rodriguez of the Children's Crimes Division. Victoria staggered as if she had punched. That's This is impossible. You're just a street child. Miguel smiled with a deep sadness. I'm a street child who spent 2 years learning electronics at the community center, studying about transmitters and recorders, all to get justice for my sister's death. Emma helped me unknowingly. When I found that she was also being poisoned, I realized that she finally had the opportunity to catch you in the act. Dr. Wells advanced toward Miguel, but Richard blocked his way. Don't you dare to touch him. You don't understand, Dr. Wells shouted, completely out of control. There are 17 dead children. 17. All of rich families, all with pulled inheritances that ended up in the surviving spouse's accounts. Do you think you can stop an operation of this size? Richard felt nausea. 17. And Emma would be the 10th octave, Victoria completed her now cold and calculating voice. But you ruined years of work. It was at this moment that the ICU doors opened. They were not hospital security guards who entered. They were federal agents led by a middle-aged Latin woman with an expression of controlled fury. Researcher Rodriguez, FBI, she announced, showing her identification. Dr. Harrison Wells and Victoria Blackwell. You are arrested for qualified murder, attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy against 17 minors. Dr. Wells tried to run, but was immobilized in seconds. Victoria, realizing that there was no escape, tried one last card. Richard, I love you. All I did was for us. You have to believe me. But Richard was no longer looking at her. He was watching Miguel, who held Emma's hand with tears in her eyes, not in sadness but of relief. We managed to, Miguel whispered. We managed to stop them. Researcher Rodriguez approached Miguel with respect. Miguel Santos, his 2 years of parallel investigation gave us enough evidence to process Saked, the whole network. You saved not only Emma, but dozens of other children who would be the next victims. Richard knelt alongside Miguel. You planned all this from the beginning. Miguel nodded. When I found out that Emma was being poisoned, I realized she had the perfect opportunity. She was conscious, she could collect evidence, could help me document everything. Together we set up a case they could never contest. Emma, still weak but smiling, added, Miguel taught me how to pretend that the injections worked, but in fact I spit half the poison and keep samples. I also learned to record conversations when they thought I was sleeping. Researcher Rodriguez shook her head in admiration. In 20 years of career, I've never seen a sophisticated evidence collection operation conducted by 2 children. While Dr. Wells and Victoria were taken in handcuffs, both shouting threats and denying everything, Richard watched Miguel and Emma embraced. 2 children who had faced adult monsters and won through courage, intelligence, and a friendship that transcended any social difference. Miguel, Richard said, his emotion-embargoed voice, how can I thank you for what you did? The Philippine boy looked at him with eyes that had seen too much suffering for his age, but still shining with hope. You don't have to thank me, Mr. Blackwell. Just let me continue to be Emma's brother. That's all I want. Emma squeezed Miguel's hand. Forever, Miguel. You're my family now. Researcher Rodriguez smiled as she finished the notes. You know you have just dismantled the largest children's series in state history, don't you? But for Richard, Miguel, and Emma, at that moment it was only one thing. They had found a true family in the ashes of betrayal. And for the first time in years, Richard knew that his daughter was truly safe, protected not by medical appliances or people who pretended to take care of her, but for genuine love who had grown between 2 brave enough children to face the impossible. The sound of the sirens moving away marked the end of a nightmare that had lasted years, but for 3 people in that ICU, he marked the beginning of something much more powerful, a family built on truth, courage, and justice. And sometimes these are the strongest families of all.